Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's very special edition of our Best Practices webinar. Really, the registration has been through the roof on this one, so I think we hit a nerve here. Summer planning, the do's and don'ts of summer school transportation. There's a lot of great tips here, what to do, what not to do, maybe some hard lessons learned. Our panelists are extremely expert in what they do, but they also are very transparent, wanting to share things that they wish they knew going into the summer. And so they're going to share some of those tips. I want to make it clear, you are part of this. So, we have an area there where you can put comments and questions. So please do not hesitate in putting in, a question or a comment. Without further ado, I'll come back and give some more housekeeping stuff, but I want to introduce Transfinder's President and CEO, Antonio Civitella. Tony.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Special. This is so special. We're trying to find some new tips that notice even the G on planning is missing. We're just trying to find shortcuts, better way to say things with even less letters. I love that. I love it. So it's the do's and don'ts. I think we're gonna have a lot of do's that I'm hoping to learn a lot today here with all of you. And of course, we always got a great panel. And I think we have a near record. I think the numbers are the attendees. It just keeps going up, which is amazing. Registrations here. And we know that summer is really, a lot of people take time off. It's the time to go on the beach and so forth. But, I know many of you, that's when the real work really starts at that point. So I know we're right here. And, I'm always talking about what are the takeaways? What are we going to learn? And, I got a little story. This past couple of days ago, I given awards to 3 honorees for the really Entrepreneur of the Years of my alma mater, Siena College. And there's something about that I learned about each individuals, and that I've actually wanted to share with the group. There was 3 people. One of them actually ended up being, a good friend of mine, and I asked questions early days, saying, hey, he's in development. Maybe I should get into buy some building. Just feel like I want to be part of the community. He said, why you want to do that? Why you want to be in development? You don't see me in technology. And I thought, like, what is he give me? You know what he said? He meant stick what you're good at. When you're good at something, stay with that. And I thought that was something that was really important to stay laser focused. And obviously, think about what we've done in past 3 years. That's what we're good at. I was at a very large presentation this morning. I just got off. Wow, they haven't seen our product in a few years. And like, wow, Transfinder's done really well. Again, stick with what you're good at. Another winner, I felt that was such a good thing. He ended up building our headquarters at Schenectady. If some of you have ever been there, it's really beautiful place, state of the art, and looks great. And someone's got the microphone on. I could hear that thing going on there. So he gave me this amazing lesson I learned from this guy. And again, we got to learn lessons from each other's, right? That's what happens. And it was a huge opportunity. We were going to meet on a Monday, but he sent me a text right away, and it really impacted me because I still have this text from 11 years ago. He said, I promised I was going to spend time with my kids at the lake. So we're meeting on Tuesday instead. You don't think about that. What's that takeaway? Is to mean you got to keep your promises. I know you guys are going to be very busy this summer. You have obligations for your job and parents, but you make promises to spend time with your family, whether you're going to go on a lake or do something. Don't break those promises. I mean, listen, I'm pretty sure my son Alessio benefited from that takeaway a long time ago. And this third individual was actually ended up being a granddaughter of Jim Forth. If some of you know, Jim Forth really started Forth and Associates, which really I ended up buying the company, and it became Transfinder when I was a college kid. And this girl was actually college about the same age I was when I met her grandfather. And I found out a couple hours before the award was given out. And one of my takeaway, and again, so many things that he would actually, I learned so many lessons. And one of the big lessons, and I know you guys are, I hope it's a takeaway for you too, is that you know, a lot of times we react on emotions and we get upset, or you get a phone call from a parent, right? And you, or maybe your boss, right? Or a colleague or somebody in your office, and you feel like you have to make a decision. What Jim would always say is that something that's really big decisions, or you feel it very emotional, sleep on it. Don't make a decision. A lot of times you're doing things that are going to potentially be rash. Think about that. How many people go out there and post things on social media and so forth, or send a text or an email? You remember, you can't undo that. So take your time. Wouldn't it be great if so many people just would take their time and instead of actually overreacting, they would do that? Again, I know it's summertime. Like, what does that have to do with my do's and don'ts of the summer? These are things happen and things get elevated. Summertime, I know it. It gets elevated for us too here at Transfinder. But I just want to just share some of those takeaways that I think, again, it's things I've always tried to practice, my do's and don'ts, but good things. Rick, I'm super excited. I know you got a great panel going on here, and obviously these webinars are always recorded of transfinder.com, but please, I'll be on. So if you guys have any questions, send some questions. Come on, stump me a little bit, all right? Please. It's Thursday morning here. I feel like I gotta get something going here. All right. So thank you, everybody. Have a great summer if I don't see you at many conferences coming up here next couple months. Peace, everybody.
Tony. And like Tony just said, I mean, he learned those 3 tips just from 3 people. I know that people are going to leave this webinar with some lessons that they've learned. And I've always been amazed at just how the panelists actually will say to me, I learned stuff from this panel too. I learned from my other panelists. So I think we all are in this together. So Bridget, if you can go to the next slide, I'm going to introduce the panelists. And before I forget, I'm going to ask, so we can let this get rolling, because I love when I see all the comments go crazy. So I'd love to know when your summer school starts. You don't have to give the date, but maybe even the month. If you know the date, go for it. I want to see these questions or the comment section just light up with when you guys have started. I know we hit a nerve here, so oh, here we go already. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists, and I'll go through what you guys are saying here. Bruce Berry, please welcome Bruce Berry from Black River Local Schools in Ohio. We've got Craig Henson. He's with Tuscaloosa County Schools in Alabama. Welcome, Craig. Janice Ortiz with Watchung Hills Regional High School District. And we have Elizabeth Hamid with Half Hollow Hills School District in New Jersey. So New Jersey is very well represented. Janice, you're on, but you're not on camera, correct?
So it looks like to me that my camera is frozen.
Okay, so here's the deal. You have got to be loud and proud, because when I see faces, I can see people when they're moving a little bit and I can call on them. So you just do not feel rude. You know, you're New Jersey, so I'm assuming, you know, I used to live in New Jersey, so I can say that I think you know how to get in, right, and make your voice heard. So please, if you have a comment, you want to jump in, I'll make sure I ask you questions as well, but don't be shy, okay?
Will do.
Okay. I'm just going to real quickly see what I got here. We got mostly June 26th, some Julys, July, end of June, some May 31st. Let's see, June, May, July. So that's pretty much some May. Again, I see a few Mays here as well. Wow, summer in May. Wow, okay. It barely gets into 70 degrees, right, Tony, in New York in May. So I don't think a summer in May quite yet. All right.
Listen, last week we did have a beautiful. I mean, I actually got motivated to open up my pool a couple of days ago, but of course not.
Let me know.
It snowed about an hour away from here. Last night we had.
I gotta find my bathing suit, and we'll be over after the webinar. So, all right, I'm gonna introduce everybody and ask them to kind of tell us a little bit about themselves, maybe their career, like, you know, maybe how long they've been at the district or something that kind of gives us a sense of their role there. And then tell us about your district. How many students you transport normally, like during the regular school year, and then how many you do during the summer time, okay? I'm gonna start with Bruce and go to Craig. and then we'll move over to Janice, and we'll close up with Elizabeth. So go ahead, Bruce.
So I'm in a very small school district. We have transport about 700 kids, but we cover about 114 square miles in Ohio. I have 10 regular bus drivers and 3 van drivers on staff. And I've been at Black River here in this position as transportation director now, beginning my 8th year. Totally, I'm going to start my 40th year in transportation. Most of those years, most of those years as a bus driver, but I've been a supervisor for a total of 13.
Wow. So you started when you were 12, before you could drive.
Close enough, 18.
All right, Craig, welcome. Tell us a little bit about how long you've been there and a little bit about your district.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. I've been certainly looking forward to it. This is finishing year 30 for me as an educator. Was fortunate to start out in the classroom as a high school band director, and then became an assistant principal, served as a principal, and now privileged to work in a central office role. I've been in the transportation role for about 4 years now as coordinator. Our district, we house about 19,000 students, so we're quite large district, one of the largest in the state. And we transport on a regular about 12,000 students in the morning route, 12,000 in the afternoon route, which is about 240 routes through the course of the day, each morning and afternoon. In the summer, we anticipate we'll transport between 12 and 1,400 students. And so quite large district we cover. We're the largest landmass district in the state of Alabama, which is about 1,250 miles. So we enjoy the challenge that we have to meet our mission, which is to get kids to and from school safely every day.
Wow, we enjoy the challenge. You don't hear that very. I like that. I like that. 30 years too. Congratulations to you. We want to tell the panelists that there might be some noise in the background. So when there is, if you don't mind muting yourselves and then popping on when you're going to talk, but don't forget to unmute because we want to hear from you. But if there is noise in the backdrop, just be mindful of that. I know that you guys are in the workplace, which is great. All right, I'm going to go on to Janice. Janice, tell us a little bit about yourself and your district.
So I work for Watchung Hills Regional High School here in New Jersey, in Warren, New Jersey. We transport a little bit over 1,000 students during the regular school year, and they come from 4 different towns. And our summers are a bit slower, I would say. We transport about 12 to 15 students to our high school, and maybe another handful that go out of district. I've been working as a transportation supervisor since 2007, and I've worked with 2 other districts. I've only been here with Watchung for the past 2 years.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Elizabeth.
Hi there, I'm Elizabeth Hamid, work for Half Hollow Hills School District. We're in New York on Long Island. I don't know how New Jersey came up. I'm the assistant transportation supervisor. I've been here about 7 years. Before this, I worked for another district on Long Island, William Floyd, and I was there about 8 years. My first start with summer school was when I was my very first year at William Floyd, where I was just kind of thrown into it because my supervisor had had to have surgery. I knew nothing about transportation. I was in accounting all my life. So it was very interesting. It was a great challenge. And that's when I realized that I love transportation. And I've stayed in it ever since. Here at Half Hollow, we transport about 8,000 students in the regular school year. During the summer, it's about 200, both in, and it's all special education students. And we have about 8 buses for our in-district schools, and the rest are out of district.
Very good. Thank you. Before we jump in, my first question that you guys can be thinking about it is going to be like, when do you start planning for your summer runs? I'm going to ask all of our attendees as well. I got a poll question for you. When do you start planning for summer? We'll talk over the poll. So I'm just going to go, feel free to, anyone can jump in. Bridget, if you could just pull up the poll. When do you start your, someone just said now, Brenda said now. I'm hearing May, Tina says, so here we go. Here are your choices at the start of the school year. So actually in the fall of the previous year, at the start of the calendar year. So we're talking January, 2 to 3 months before summer school starts, a month before summer school starts. What? Planning? So Janice, I'm going to let you start us off on that one. When do you start planning?
So I start planning, I would say April. Although at the beginning of the school year, I kind of send out a little reminder of when our due dates are for the summer transportation, being that we have to submit a lot of these requests to out of district to contractors and coordinated services agencies. But I can say right now, the one route that we're having in-house has already been created. A driver has been chosen. We're working on getting an aide. So that's all set up pretty much. I just have to send out that driver on a dry run, and we're all ready to start for July 5th.
Great,
Wow.
great. I heard a while there from Elizabeth, so I'm going to let you continue on here.
Oh, sure. We start planning in May, usually the first week in May, which is next week. We have to gather all the information from our special education department and get everything from them so we can start all of our routing. And we also contract all of our buses, so we have to get the information over to them as soon as possible.
Very good. Yeah, so they give you a time. So you have to back everything up a little bit. I love, by the way, we can see school buses in your window. You couldn't get better timing. It's awesome. That might be the first webinar we've actually seen a school bus in action. And we've done this for 2 years now. So, Craig, how about you?
We start the start of the calendar year. So in January, the second semester is the initial planning to just kind of get an idea of where we're going and what we might be doing. And then we get intensive with it about 2 months out. So at this point, we're already well into it. We start on June 5th. So we've already surveyed our drivers. We have our list of drivers. And then we're in the process now of just waiting, play the wait game to see who will attend so we can begin to build routes. And then we usually have about a really intense week and a half, 2 week period to get all the routes built for those students and get them out to the drivers so that the stop pickups can be given to the parents and also the driver can learn the route.
And I want to make sure we touch on something. We had a dry run yesterday, folks. You know, we talked the day before, and we also email a month really in advance of these webinars. And Craig, you had some really good tips I want to make sure we get to as well when it comes to building those routes. How about you, Bruce? When are you starting your planning for summer?
So I work really close with our student services department, and they usually get us the list, and I work back and forth with all my special ed routes very closely with them. So I've got just first names that they sent me since we're so small of the students. I have 5 students that are going to go to ESY, which is the extended school year program. Parents in our district bring those 5 kids right here on campus. Then I take a van up that meets them, and then they transport them out of district to Medina, and then they return in the afternoon. So my school year program is pretty simple. I mean, I get the list, I arrange the transportation, and then I can work on getting ready for next school year for the rest of the summer. We do have a couple of field trips. We have a few field trips interspersed in the summer, not nearly like what's going on during the school year. So I also work on those.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. By the way, William mentioned in his note that he still has non-public schools that are open for their, I guess their school is closed, maybe they're done, but their non-public schools are still open, and they also transfer for summer. So he goes, our buses basically run 52 weeks a year. So I don't know if anybody else can relate to that, but I thought that was interesting. Bridget, can you show us the poll results? Okay, so you want to give us the results here?
Sure, yep, absolutely. So 58% of folks are doing their planning 2 to 3 months before summer school starts, 30% a month before, and 10% are beginning at the start of the calendar year, and 4% at the start of the school year. And we got one who said, "What planning?"
Very good, very good. Thank you, Bridget. And actually, can you move on to the next, after we get to the next slide here, I want to show something real quick. Just a quick look at some things that I did borrow from an STN column that was done by actually a former supervisor who is at one of our Transfinder client, North Little Rock School District. He said some things to consider regarding summer school recruitment and hiring of drivers. Of course, that's year round. Heavy maintenance of buses, planning, scheduling, and publishing of routes, planning in staff training, updating special needs routes and assignments, and checking with other districts and offsite campuses on start times, ending times, and special schedules. Okay, you can go back to the panel slide. Or you can keep that up, either one. Okay, so tell me a little bit about how is summer planning different than, planning for the school year? And who wants to take the first stab at that?
I'll jump in.
I'll do that. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Craig.
Okay, I think I would say the summer planning is different because of for us, the significantly lesser amount of students that are riding the bus. And so the fact that there are less, that also adjusts stops. And so one of the things we're looking at this year is doing stop pools to lessen mileage for greater fuel efficiency, but also in the event that we don't have to use as many drivers to run those routes. So but I would say in a nutshell, the main thing would be the lessened amount of students that attend, and then how that lessened number affects the routes that are done, but also where stops are made and those type things. And then the other significant change that we notice is, of course, hours don't go all day. So that's a way different than the school year. It's a half day. So we drop at 7:30, pick up at 12 noon, which normally we drop at 7:20 to 7:35 and pick up 2:45 to 3:15. So that can create a little bit of a difference just because we're not aware of the traffic patterns that typically happen in the middle of the day that would be different from the afternoon.
Very good. You also mentioned the idea yesterday when we talked about when you're going to this new approach with the pools, to not confuse things and go back to a different way in the fall. You want to try to implement a change. It's an opportunity to do that in the summer, and then kind of implement it for the greater student body in the fall.
Correct. Yeah, we're trying that out to see. One of the things that we, because we cover such a large landmass, and particularly in the summer, it's just not efficient or being good stewards of tax dollars if we go 12 miles one direction to pick up one student. And so that's why we're considering the stop pools, and we have put that out in publicity and promotion for those that request transportation. That our typical year is limited in door-to-door pickup except for special needs, but in our summer school it's just about impossible because we're trying to cover the same. In our normal year we will cover 1,250 miles with about 212 or 15 drivers. In the summer we cover the same exact distance with about 50 drivers. So there's no way we can do it effectively and in a timely manner if we don't use those.
Very good. Elizabeth. Thank you, Craig.
Yes, same situation. There, excuse me, many less students, and they're all special needs. So we run only vans during the summer, and that makes a big difference. That makes a huge difference.
How about you, Janice or Bruce? Anything you guys want to add?
Well, in my case, it's very different, the summer versus the regular school year. During the summer, like I said, we only have one route that comes into the high school. And something that I forgot to mention is that we only have high school students here. So we're not K through 8, although we do work together with the K through 8, the neighboring K through 8 districts, but they do their own transportation. They arrange their own transportation. All we do is bid for services in their behalf. But we do work together. And in the summer, I just have that one small bus. Most of the time we contract it out. This year I decided to use a sub driver for that, which means the bus will come out of our lot and it'll be a driver that works for the district. And during the school year, we have about 40 buses that sit out here morning and afternoon, because everybody gets transportation in this district. But the summer seems to be a breeze for us.
Great, great. Bruce, anything you want to add?
Wrong button.
So
No,
I want to talk.
Mine's pretty much like Janice's. You know, the summer's a breeze for me. I have one van, and parents bring them here on campus, and then we take them out to the neighboring city. So,
Bruce, yesterday you mentioned that you used the summer was an opportunity to install some devices on the bus, Wi-Fi, two-way radio. Tell me a little bit about that, how that worked well in the summer, and then how that is like a good test pilot, I guess, for the district-wide launch after this test.
sure.
Craig, I'm sorry. Was it Craig or it was you, Bruce? Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we use the summertime. Basically, that's our big maintenance time, getting buses ready. I only have one mechanic on staff and myself, and we do hire a driver as summer help. So she kind of assists with some of the smaller items, like, you know, if we have seat foams in the bus to replace or some little maintenance items. But yeah, anytime we have any kind of new technology, we try to get it installed in the summertime and then use that as a dry run, if you will, you know, and test it out before we start going into the school year with everyone. And I think, Craig, did you have something on that as well?
You had a pretty big one, didn't you, Craig?
Yes, sir. We were able, through CARES Act money, we purchased the unit and UV350 device. It has two-way radio, cell phone tracking capability, and also onboard Wi-Fi. And we did install those, and we did a pilot group last summer of about 50 buses that allowed us to check any kind of discrepancies, channel frequencies, lots of nuanced details that we were able to work out, and it worked quite well. And then we took the information we learned from the summer school drivers. They were kind of our pilot group to help train, and also to, when we trained the large group in the summer back to school training, it gave us some feedback to provide with them. And it also gave people in each area that were more familiar with the radios because they had used them all summer. So it worked well to get a small group. Anytime, to me, when there's a major change, it's always better to start with a small group, as it were, and then broaden it as you become more comfortable, and that kind of turn around the training to others.
That's great. So some people maybe perk up their ears right now. This is going to be like the summer warnings of things. So I want to hear like things to do, like Tony highlighted, but also things not to do. And Elizabeth, you sent something in like big bold letters to me, warnings of things not to do when you're planning for your summer. Do you recall?
Yes, we're currently using, Transfinder, Route Finder Pro, and I found out the hard way: do not delete the students that are not attending summer school, because you run into a lot of difficulties. So we just basically copy our database from this current year into and we just call it summer, and then we just take the transportation needs out, and then for the ones that aren't going, and then we can always add them right back because they're still in the database.
Very good. Anybody else?
That was a big one.
That is a good one. And Anybody else have a do not do? Like, I mean, when we talked about this yesterday, we talked about like what you wish you had known going into maybe that first summer, and now you can pass that on to some of our attendees who are probably like eagerly like, please tell me what I need to know. So any other warnings? And yes, if you have questions, I just saw one. Someone said I use quick filters and custom data fields to sort summer school students. So William, thank you for that tip. Anybody else have some things you should not do when planning your summer runs?
I'm not sure I would say it should not do, but maybe if we framed it in that kind of way, I would say not allow yourself to get frustrated. I think the thing I would say that would be most helpful to know going in, which we all know, but maybe just a good reminder, is just to remain flexible. And our theme or our motto here is to have a backup to the backup. And so we always like to think and play out scenarios that if this happens, and we kind of do the if this then that kind of scenarios very often. And oftentimes that's time that's wasted, to be honest, but there are lots of times that it really pays great dividends. So I guess if we frame it with what not to do, is not to get frustrated when change happens. And notice I didn't say if change happens, but when change happens, to not allow the frustration to overcome. Then you become so overwhelmed that we take our focus off what we do for students, and it becomes a selfish nature then, because it violated our plan that we so tediously put together. And then when the plan's violated, oftentimes emotion comes into it. And then when emotions come into it, we lose sight of our vision. And when that happens, it's not about the kids, now it's about us. So keep the eyes on the prize. The eyes on the prize is the fact, and we say our customers are the students and families, the stakeholders that help run our school system. And in doing that, we can stay positive, and we can make better choices that benefit students. Because when you're not ready for change, those are the times that really it becomes a downward spiral that's often hard to evade.
That's good. I used to say that to my son. Like, he didn't exactly take the path I had for him for schooling, and I said, I had such a good plan for your life, but it's not about me, right? So it's like you're saying, you gotta go with the flow. And Tony always talks about figuring it out too. And Bruce, you're smiling. I know yesterday when Craig was talking about backup to the backup, you basically were right there about having a backup to your backup plan.
Absolutely. So the first year that I started in this position here at this job, they hadn't been doing the automatic import from our student information system. And it was very interesting. I started basically in July 1st. We had our bid meeting for drivers the first week of August. And not knowing what I know now, I decided, let's turn on the student information system import, and then everything will be up to date. It'll be a lot less keystrokes for me entering all the students manually. So I did that 2 days before our bid meeting, and in doing so, it wiped out all of my routes. It unrouted every single student that I had. It duplicated things. It was a major mess, and I had no idea, being that new, using the system, how to fix it. So long story short, I basically had to try to remember where routes went and do it manually. So I spent quite a few hours overnight, basically one night, trying to get everything ready for the bid meeting, so the drivers at least had some routes to bid on.
Wow.
It was a mess. Wow. So backup, and more backup. That's, I guess, the takeaway.
That's a very good takeaway. And Craig, I don't want to forget, so we'll come back to you. I want to read something, and I want to make sure I bring Janice in on this too, because I think I heard a laugh in the back. That might have been you. Michael shares, we often get many late change requests for routes during the summer, which is very difficult to process in a timely manner. We have started to build base routes for a school that we know will have a program with neighborhood stops, and then add students to those stops as we get lists of students later. It allows us to build the routes and move forward while still waiting for information from the schools. So maybe that'll work for some people. Janice, anything you want to add here?
I'm going to add to that, to what you just read. And I was going to say, never wait till the last minute. If you can manage to get that information in, the sooner the better from your special education departments, because things do change quickly and very often during the summer, during the school year. And if you're ready to roll, then you're ready to deal with whatever change comes in a timely fashion, and your procedures or your operation is not majorly affected.
Very good. Very good. I got a
I
note
have to
here.
agree with that.
You agree? Anything you want to add with that, Elizabeth? I don't want to cut you off.
Yes, I just want to agree with that because transportation in general is just change. It's constant change all the time, and last minute trying to make miracles happen, which we do all the time, as everybody knows.
I was telling you guys yesterday when you guys brought up the word flexibility, we hadn't heard that word a lot lately, and it seemed like early on in COVID when we first started these webinars, flexibility was like the buzzword. But we know that nothing's changed in that area. You have to be flexible. I know you guys are all nodding your heads there. Chris mentions here, don't have again, one thing about these things is these webinars is that we're not always going to agree, or what approach works for one person may not work for others. So I don't think this is like a disagreement necessarily, but Chris writes, don't have transportation enrollment too early or too late. It's always nice to be able to build routes early, but you can also end up with a lot of dead stops if you take enrollment too early. I will tell you a little plug. I try not to do too many plugs, but I can tell you Route Finder Plus makes removing dead stops super easy. And then I'm going to throw out a question that's coming from here. I still have some more questions in my list, but I'd like to go to.
I'll throw something. I'll throw something there too.
Right.
We try to cover all of our landmass, as it were, but we are able to use it, and plus the absorption feature. And so what we have is when we built the routes, oftentimes once students enroll, we can use the absorption feature. And a lot of times we can end up consolidating routes that before we moved to Plus, we couldn't do that. And now that before we moved to Plus, we didn't have that option in Pro, but the absorption feature, if you have the routes there, because we know there aren't going to be any new students moving and go to summer school. It's going to be kids that are already enrolled and kids that are already riding our buses in the current semester. So a lot of times we build base routes as someone else already referenced, and then use the absorption feature when we see that we don't have enough kids to merit a full route. We can absorb 2 or 3 routes into one, and it still makes it quicker than building one large route kind of the last minute.
Wow.
Good. Craig, I want to stick with you for a minute. You had something I thought was really good about how you survey your drivers. This is part of, I asked you when you talked about the backup to the backup plan, and I said, can you give me a sense of what that even looks like? Maybe just one example. And you shared a really good approach that you have to securing your drivers for the summer.
Yes, so what we do, we currently haven't transitioned to the forms component on Transfinder yet because it's still fairly new. Prior to forms coming out, we've used Microsoft Forms. And so what we have done is create a form, and in that we get very minimal information: driver name, bus number, cell phone number, and then we give them 4 answer choices. Yes, I definitely want a route. Yes, I definitely want a route, but can't drive all the days. I'm not available all the days. I would consider driving a route depending on the details, and no, I do not want a route. And so when that comes in, it comes in through a spreadsheet. And so now we have ready, and drivers, we have a mass call out system. And so we can send that, I can create the survey and send it out to all 250 plus of our drivers within minutes. And it's just a link, and they tap on it, and we try to keep it short, and we've gotten great success with that. Currently, we have about 210 of 235 that were sent out. 210 have responded, and so then through the spreadsheet, you can use Excel and delineate down to just the ones. You can sort it, filter it, and so basically, I've created 3 lists, and then that's what we will use. And from those lists, I'll color code, and we'll know for our 6 zones once we know how many routes, and we just go from the first list down to, and then if we don't need the ones that we consider, we don't have to bother them. If we're short in an area, then we go to our list that said they would consider a certain area, and we reach out to them individually. But it served us. This is our third year to have done it, and it seems to get a little more. This year we actually took more questions off the survey. We found that the shorter they are, the quicker they can get them completed, the higher the response. So that was something that worked well for us.
Whenever we send out a survey, I'm always like, can we say like, it'll take you 30 seconds or less? People are more apt to take it than I have a 5-minute survey. Well, 5 minutes seems like a long time. And you were alluding to, for those of you who don't know, Route Finder Plus has built into it Form Finder. So you're staying actually right in the system even. So it's even that much more seamless. Anybody else want to add to, approaches that help them make sure that they have all their routes covered, or any other issues, maintenance issues or training issues? What other things are you doing in the summer that's a good time to get some things done? Elizabeth, I'm looking at you, so you're.
No, I'm good.
Okay. So one person talks about, let's see here. We send out questionnaire as well to drivers. We require 7 days during the summer from drivers who don't want to work, but we use them as sub drivers if needed on those days. So surveys is a good idea on those days. Another person, Tammy, said, by the way, that fluidity has become their buzzword in there, so you got to be fluid. So we talked about what not to do. Are there other things specifically, like on the positive side? Elizabeth, you also gave a very specific thing that you should do in the summer. So what's your advice, things that you should do in the summer?
Use as many fields as possible for information. Cohort fields, user-defined fields, for special needs, special instructions, DAs, anything like that. It's extremely helpful. We have 4 or 5 people in our department. So if somebody's out, all you have to do is look at a student's file and you see everything. Another idea is to print out, we make spreadsheets, of course, from Route Finder, and keep it up to date and keep it handy. Because during the summer, basically you're running your summer, but you're working on next year. So it's a lot easier just to flip through a spreadsheet, since there's only a couple hundred students, as opposed to flipping back and forth to data sources.
Great.
So, and back up.
And back up, right. Janice, Craig, or Bruce, anything else that you would say, like, these are definitely on my to-do list every summer?
One of the things we do, 2 things I should say. One is we do driver training. So we reflect on any issues and questions we've had the previous year, and we can incorporate in our back to school driver training for the coming year. Also under driver training, we host 3 training, because the new entry-level driver training requirements that have come about as of February of 2022, we host a spring, summer, and fall class. So we have a large class. We anticipate the last 3 summers, we've had 22 to 25 new drivers in training. So that's a large thing we do that's easier to do in the summer. And get that. The last thing we do is we ask our drivers, when buses are turned in, we divvy out the routes and have them turn in updated route sheets. And so we take time in the summer. We recently transitioned to using Wayfinder, the navigation piece that I would highly recommend if you haven't checked into that yet. But we have done a pilot study for the state of Alabama over the course of the last year, and just last month, we're able to get it added to the bus specs for our state, that navigation is now allowed for turn by turn on buses. Prior to last month, it's never been allowed in the state. So we use that time to clean up routes, because that's really going to transform not only for necessarily for drivers, but for sub drivers, our mechanics, our supervisors, and we also have a position that's full-time, that's utility, and we have tablets that we've issued each of them. So that time we use when buses aren't running or on a limited run, we clean up routes so that it's more effective for Wayfinder. That will be more effective as we plan for next year when we need turn-by-turn navigation on routes.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, we're implementing that this year, but we don't use Wayfinder. We're going to do them manually. We're going to do the drivers update their left rights, and we'll input those during the summer so we have nice and clean routes for next year.
Bruce, anything, or Janice, either one of you want to add anything? Things
So
that you said we definitely did.
in my case, you know, summer is a time when I have to go into those routes and reassess bus stops, and you know, maybe a bus stop needs to be switched to another route, just to even out the numbers. And we also have to reassess our operating procedures. You know, maybe there was something that didn't work out this year that, you know, needs to be implemented for the next. And then it's a matter of updating our handbook and educating drivers.
That's great. That's great. How about you, Bruce?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with what everybody on the panel has said. You know, that's the time where I'm going to clean up bus routes, you know, try to balance things out. Maybe student numbers on one bus are much higher than on others. Clean all that little stuff up and do some driver training. I try to get a lot of the new drivers. Yeah, I don't really have many new drivers, but I do have one. So her training will be done during the summertime when we have more time to devote to it. And basically clean up, getting ready for the start of the next school year.
Now, I have something that somebody said. I'm going to just show my ignorance, but I'm not great at acronyms. I'm really good at like BLT and PBJ, but I'm not good at other ones. So I'm going to read this because I think there might be some value here, but you're going to have to tell me what he means, okay? It's by Michael. He says, if a driver is going from BB to SB or SB to BB, you know what that means? So neither one of you. Okay, Michael, write quickly in here so I can see what you're saying. I'm going to keep reading what he says. Maybe it's big bus to small bus. Okay. So if the driver is going from big bus to small bus or small bus to big bus during the summer, we have them go through a quick retraining or refresh with our driver's training team to get accustomed to the different size vehicles, as we found many of the early summer routes accidents involved drivers that were switching from the bus. That's a good point there. So are you having a driver, you know, they may be a great driver, but they're maybe driving something that they're not used to driving. So that's actually a really good point. So thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate it. Anything I want to, Bridget, can you move to the next slide? I want to read something, another item I took from the STN column that was written by this former transportation supervisor. Just some checklist questions that not strictly for summer, they go from summer, but they also are for preparing for the fall, because you all know summer is fleeting, right? It's winter is the longest month of the longest season ever, and summer is like the quickest, for sure. So here are some questions, because this is what your ultimately goal is to get ready for the fall. What if, so this he talks about going to as many as you can do here, where you're going to each principal. Maybe you have to delegate people to do part of this as well, special education coordinators, directors of secondary and elementary education, and you ask these questions. Tell me what you think. Anybody in the group here wants to add something in the attendee list as well? What, if any, I added the if any, issues have you had the previous year with transportation? What things have been going right with the transportation? What if transportation considered changing starting times, ending times, different lineup procedures, etc.? What changes do you anticipate for next year? You know, is there going to be an increase or decrease of enrollment, etc.? And is there anything we can do to make your campus work more smoothly? So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on any of those questions or ones that you would add to that list.
We definitely do this. Some by phone. We try to make it among our supervisors to visit the schools as often as possible. So we've already started having these conversations. In our district, we also, once per month, all principals get together. So that's a time for us to go and see them all in one place, which is much easier to do. And then another date, all the assistant principals get together. So often with principals, we're talking more the logistics, and then with assistant principals, that's where we're talking. We have a discipline protocol that we use, and so a lot of our time is spent educating them on when they are so quick to want a video pull, what's entailed with that, when they expect we should put them on a bus immediately, what it entails putting them on the bus. So it's like we try to prepare and reflect on what we do to educate our drivers to fix issues. We also look through and we do a presentation at the administrative retreat and do a PowerPoint, as it were, for those guys and gals to also know these are the most asked questions we've gotten this year, and here are the answers to them. And that seems to be successful, particularly when we, believe it or not, just printing it out and taking them a copy. We got lots of compliments because they were able to refer to it through the year instead of have to try to find it in an email. But I 100% agree with that. We don't necessarily check enrollment with them because we have a way through our student information system we can check that and really know probably more than most schools do what the projected enrollment looks like. But everything else, typically at principal, more logistics, assistant principal, more with the discipline, because it sort of falls in the fields they serve.
Good, good. Anybody else want to add anything?
We basically do the same with the assistant principals and principals with the issues during the year. They do meet once a month for the first few months, and one of the supervisors will, either myself or my supervisor, will go to those meetings and get their feedback, as well as their daily communication with, with behaviors on the bus and things like that.
I
So I
like,
definitely agree.
when you do this kind of thing too, it probably just builds more goodwill,
Mm-hmm.
You're the ones being proactively going to them. You're already sending a message, I think a strong message that you're there to help. You're all on the same team. So I got somebody who says that one of the things that they do is they also reach out to the Transfinder Tech Department. Rich and Bob have always been helpful. So that's one thing that they always want to do before they kick off the new year. And let's see. Okay. So I had one, because this is an important issue, and because Craig kind of alluded to like surveying his drivers, I just am curious how you all are doing on the driver shortage issue. Do you have a driver shortage? If you do, how are you compensating for that? If you don't, how have you survived to not have a driver shortage? What tricks or tips can you give us for anybody? Because that's something that we almost can't go without touching on it a little bit. I'm just going to go down through the line. If you don't have anything to add, that's okay. I'm going to start with Bruce, go to Craig, Janice, and then end with you, Elizabeth. Do you have a driver shortage? If so, tell me a little bit about it. How do you deal with that? And then if you don't, tell me how you're doing so well. So Bruce.
So all my routes are covered. Of course, I've only got 13 routes, so that's an easy fix there. I have one sub that drives pretty much every day. Another sub that's on the list, but she hasn't been able to drive because of scheduling and so forth. And of course, I have that one in training. I drive several times a week just to get everything covered. The other thing is I haven't had to cancel any routes this year, but I have had to do some modifications, or I'll take 10 or 12 kids off of one bus and then divide them up between 4 or 5 other buses, and just to get through the afternoon. So that's what I've been doing.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good. So it sounds like it's fairly manageable.
Yeah, it's manageable.
How about you, Craig?
We're actually very blessed in the fact that we started the year, all 215 routes that we run were 100% filled. Since then, we've had a few wagons go off the trail, but it's not anything that could be avoided, and most of them are in the way of long-term absence due to surgery, due to illness, due to spouse illness. So right now we have currently about 15 positions that are open every day. but we have enough with our driver training. As I said earlier, we do 3 training classes a year. And so we had 23 in the summer, 9 in the fall, and 8 in the spring. So we've trained 40 drivers that have all been a huge benefit to us. And then this summer, we anticipate to do that. The way we handled doing that, we actually are picking up letters today. We created a letter that entails basically the benefits of how it works to be a bus driver, that we provide free training. And then on the reverse side of it, we have a poster that we solicit and ask the help of we give it to every elementary student and every intermediate student, which in our district is about 12,000 families, 12,000 homes. And so we ask them to, if they're interested, to certainly reach out to us to get started. And then we host an orientation meeting in both ends of our county to explain it in better detail. And we have created a number of videos that we have in an email that we can send. And then we ask them if they're not interested to please post it at their community center, their churches, talk it around their family. And because we've learned the word of mouth is the best advertisement we've got, and that and social media helps get the word out. And because if our drivers are happy, they tell their communities they're happy, and then more people want to be a part of that. So that's kind of what we do. And then we cover it when we don't have all of our mechanics are certified drivers. So we have 10 state certified mechanics, 2 shop assistants that serve as drivers, 3 supervisors, shop foreman, parts clerks. So we have about 15 of us that most of us drive, I would say an average of 2 to 3 days. So that's how we set off the deficit when we do have absence. Very few subs. One other thing I'll throw in quickly, we approached our district 2 years ago and asked that sub driver pay for retired bus drivers be raised. So when we have a sub driver that's retired, they get the same pay as a year 1 driver, which is about $25 a day more. And that has significantly helped our sub, because a lot of our folks retire and they're willing to drive because they can get retirement and still make almost what they were making to drive if they were full time.
That's great. We're getting close to wrapping up. In fact, we really are at the time. So it always happens. But Tony, if you can come back on camera, I'm going to go down the line. If you were going to say something regarding the retention or recruitment, maybe you can just use this spot for that. I'm going to go down the line and ask you to give one takeaway. You got to do it really quickly, okay? Because I want to make sure you all get a chance. This is that one thing that someone heard this, went back to the office, either as a supervisor to do, or to share with their superintendent, or to share with their team, or whatever. One takeaway. I'm going to go reverse order this time with Elizabeth, Janice, Craig, and Bruce. Then Tony, if you could close us out, and then I'll say a couple quick closing remarks. So Elizabeth.
Okay, be flexible, stay happy, stay positive, laugh a lot.
That's super great advice. Thank you. Janice.
Okay, so from one of our colleagues here, back up, back up, back up.
Very good. That was mine. That was the one I was thinking. I like that. How about you, Craig?
I would say don't stay with the status quo. Don't do what you've always done. You know, the definition of insanity is do what you've always done and expect different results. So I would say survey your technology. There are lots of things if you're willing to step out of your comfort zone and try. Explore the options that have. Transfinder has a number of products that are available, and it's going to take stepping out of a comfort zone to explore what's available, because if you really get into digging in what's there, you will find there's a lot of things you can do in a much more efficient manner. And when you do that, it's saving you time, and then that creates the positivity, the happiness, and it gives you time to laugh a lot because you find ways to do things quicker.
Very good. Thank you, Craig. A lot of good stuff there. And Bruce.
Of course, back up. And I would say, just enjoy the summer. Don't get too stressed out about things, because there's always a fix if something goes wrong. And
very
people
good.
Transfinder are there to help.
Very good. I like
even
that.
If you have to spend a whole overnighter.
Exactly. Or 2.
Very good. I'm inspired by you guys. Tony, what do you got?
I'm going to say summertime. Clearly, some of you are slammed. Some of you have a little extra time. I'm going to say experiment. This is an opportunity. If obviously you have a backup, you have a multiple data source, experiment. You can't break it, right? Just experiment. Maybe, look, some of you guys were talking about trip absorption. You know, you press the button, see what it says. If all of a sudden, like, oh wow, maybe we could save a whole bus or a bunch of things. And again, Craig, you're talking about Wayfinder. I saw that video you guys posted. Wow, you guys did a great job with Wayfinder and how you guys are using it in your state. And but again, this is where you experiment. You know, we are gonna get calls in around the end of June, and we get them all the time. We get them all the time that there's that potential clients who have been interested in buying our technology, but they call us about the end of June. It's like, all right, I'm ready to get your products, and I want to be up and running by July 15th. It's like, wow, that's a little bit tough. Happens all the time, but I would say if you're interested in getting technology, don't wait till end of June. This is the window's about to shut down. And again, you know how many companies we have to, like, you know, they're saying, well, brand X, they're saying they're going to get up and start running in 3 weeks. I don't think you can. I think it's not true. But again, it's all based on how much work you can put in. I think you should experiment. This is a time of the year, especially all of you who really know our products very well. Experiment. See what you can do. Obviously, you always have another data source, but this is a time you really go outside your comfort zone, like you said. So
That's
have
great.
fun.
Tony, I got to tell you, Tony is like a typical programmer. I'm one of those guys that's afraid to touch a button because I think I'm never going to get back to where I want to be. And he's like, don't be afraid to break it. There's a lot of wisdom in there that it can always be recovered. Am I right, Tony, to say that? So I don't think like that. I've had to force myself. He was like, well, did you try this? I'm like, well, no, I didn't want to touch that. And it's not going to.
But if it says, if you have a dialogue and it's a yes/no dialogue and it says, you sure you want to delete all your students? No, you might want to.
All right. I want to first thank the panelists. Did we go through everybody? We got through it. I want to thank you all. I want to thank amazing involvement with the attendees. As Tony mentioned earlier, this is all recorded. You'll be able to find it tomorrow. You go to transfinder.com. There's a little icon for our YouTube channel. You don't have to remember the address. Just go there. It'll have it posted there. Some of you have asked about this presentation, so you'll be able to find it there and share it. If you have a story, please share it. Go to mystory@transfinder.com. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm probably going to ask if you want to be a panelist. Now, this is for Transfinder clients and future clients or prospects. You know, it doesn't matter. It could be anybody in transportation. We call this the best practices webinar because we're looking to get the best of the best to tell us what they do. So we don't really care where it comes from. So share us your story. Maybe we'll post it on LinkedIn or Facebook, or maybe we'll write a white paper, or maybe we'll have you on a webinar. Maybe we'll do all of that. So that's that. Bridget, you go to the next slide real quick. Next month, May 25th, we have several state associations of pupil transportation executive directors on. That's a mouthful to say. And they're going to give us statewide and big picture stuff. This came actually from Dave Christopher with NIAPT, who said, I would love to go to one of those webinars and hear that. So I said, let's do it, Dave. So I go, he's my first guy that signed up to do it. So mark your calendars for that, May 25th. And again, I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank all of our attendees for coming, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care.